The movie begins with a father and son at an ocean. They look through a telescope at the planets. Then the father tells his son about Jupiter, and after, he says that he is going on a very important mission. The scene changes to a narration of the major happening. We are told that global disasters began some time ago. People thought they would end, but they did not. They discovered that the sun is expanding and that in 100 years Earth would be destroyed. So in response to this catastrophic threat, a project was started to propel Earth to the closest star system a few light years away. It is called the Wandering Earth Project. An underground city was constructed, and it would be the main home for humans in the expected 2,500-year journey to the closest star. We then see Earth being propelled slowly through space by a huge glow of blue lights from one side. 17 years have gone by since that father left on his mission. We see a male in his room gathering some tools. Then he leaves and the scene changes to a school classroom. In a short while, the lights go out and the students get out of their seats. A girl leaves the classroom and is met by the male we have just seen. They both go to see some man at his workplace. They give him some money and he gives them 2 suits. They look like astronaut suits. Then one of the man's colleagues makes a statement about how they will not come back tomorrow, and the man accuses them of not paying him enough for that. He starts getting angry, and some of his working friends nearby hear this and start standing up. When they get aggressively close to the brother and sister, the guy uses some technology to create a big bubble to shield her and himself from. They then start running away, but we see them get followed. The man, Liu Kai, and the girl, Duoduo Kaiyan, then arrive and stand at some official entrance for astronauts. At this point, those that followed them could no longer grab them because Liu states to Duoduo that the suits they have on were stolen. They would get reported there to the authorities. Liu and Duoduo then get scanned. They walk through the area and get into an elevator. They then arrive to the surface of the Earth. The elevator door opens, and they get blasted by severe cold. The duo then exit the elevator. They walk out onto the cold surface and see one of the huge propelling engines emit its enormous and long blue flame. They then enter a gigantic vehicle. Liu starts driving it, but before he even gets anywhere, he crashes it into another similar vehicle there. After that, he gets slightly better control of it and drives along the icy Earth. We then see the external Earth and how a wide assortment of machinery is at work there. The view then zooms out to show the enormous blue flame and then how it is only one of several thousand. We then see a man wake up in his bed at the space station. He sees Jupiter outside his window and draws a circle around it. A Russian spaceman then comes to him and offers him some alcohol, but he says that he has just one day before he goes home. He then goes to his locker and looks at a picture of his family. Afterward, he walks with that Russian spaceman, Makarov, and asks him if they will enter Jupiter's orbit today. Makarov says that they will. Then the man puts his ID card on a computer for scanning, and it tells him that his total rest time has been 12 years throughout the 17-year journey. The space personnel around him all applaud. And later, we see a monitor showing that they have entered the orbit of Jupiter. Back to brother and sister in their vehicle. As they ride, they get caught by the police. We then see them sitting in prison. Liu tells the officer that it is his grandfather's vehicle license, but the guard tells him that no one owns them but the government. A short time later, they meet the prisoner Tim, who shakes hands with Liu. And after that, Liu's grandfather visits them to get them out. He tries offering the guard there a bribe, and because of that we then see him sharing a prison cell with his grandchildren. Due to this, he gets into a fight with Liu. However, it doesn't take long for a serious problem to start taking place. They notice that the prison wall starts cracking. An earthquake has broken out, and we see the damage that is caused throughout. Their prison gate falls down, and they become free to move. We then hear a computer say that several facilities are failing. At first, it says just over 100, and then quickly after it corrects the number to several thousand. Liu then uses a robotic hand to break the prison gate that holds Tim. We then see one of the giant's propelling engines lose its power. The computer says that Jupiter's gravity has affected Earth's gravity. It adds that Earth will collide with Jupiter in approximately 37 hours. We see Liu's grandfather riding the huge vehicle that he usually operates with skill. He rides with all of them there between 2 mountains. Huge rocks fall down while they go through, and an avalanche even follows them. It soon covers them, but their highly protective vehicle can withstand it and they soon ride out of it. After that, Liu's father, Pei King, contacts Liu's grandfather. He asks his father where Liu is, and Han says he is with him. Pei King's crew is then told to enter hibernation mode, and we see them getting into and lying in their pods. Han keeps riding in a direction where many vehicles are going the opposite way. Due to this, a smaller vehicle gets in front of them to stop them. Some people then come out of it and state they are a rescue team. A female member of that team then enters their vehicle and takes off her helmet to greet them. Later, they all keep riding. Han talks about the buildings they see as they go. He tells Liu and Duoduo that people used to live in those buildings and no one cared about the sun. They all cared about money. Back at the space station, Pei King discovers that his son is on a rescue mission. He asks to speak with him. First, he speaks to the commander there. He asks him to find a refuge for his children, but then his son interjects and says how he can operate the vehicle. His grandfather then makes a remark about how he can't operate it at all, and Pei King then says how Liu is just a kid. Liu tells him that he cannot make decisions for himself. And after that, we see a happening from their past. Liu's mother has passed away and lies in a cremation pod. Little Liu cries for her. In the next scene, we see that a flying device they previously sent out malfunctions and falls to the ground. They continue to ride between more mountains and rocks fall down at them again. The situation quickly gets them stuck. Peking hears that they are in trouble and wants to exit his pod, but the hibernation process has already begun. The whole crew then leaves the vehicle, and Liu summons another bubble as he did before. Some of them stand in it. They then take out what they call the lighter core out of the huge vehicle. One of them shoots a flare above, and then they enter some building. They must take the lighter core in there. When they are there, another earthquake starts taking place. Through an elevator passage, they all ascend by rope along with the lighter core. But due to the earthquake, a problem takes place. Han and another start falling down. The ones above attempt to pull them up. They pull up the lighter core, but Han falls down. The other man there grabs and saves him. The elevator from above then starts to fall down on them. The man then kicks in the nearby door and throws Han in there, but the elevator falls onto him. After that, the man with the machine gun fires a hole in the snow wall. Liu and Duoduo yell for their grandfather. We then see the crew pull out the lighter core into the snow. Han then looks at the percentage left on his suit, and it shows 1%. He takes off his helmet and his face begins to quickly freeze. But before he dies, he tells a story about how he saved a little girl from drowning many years ago. He says he named her Duoduo. He then tells Liu to take her home, and we see Duoduo cry for her grandfather. In the following scene, we see the space station. An unauthorized awakening has occurred. Peking gets out of his pod. Due to this, the pods of the other personnel also open. Peking tells Makarov of the situation, and Makarov questions him if he lost his mind. Then he asks him what he will do. Peking responds by saying he will go to the central control module. When they both exit the space station, they instantly fly out into space. But Makarov starts flying further. Peking holds onto him and saves him. Then he says that Jupiter has captured Earth's atmosphere, and we instantly see how there is an absorbing connection between the two planets. The next scene is Liu and his crew walking in the snow. While they do, Liu hears his sister yelling. He goes inside the interior of a vehicle they found, and another member says how he will eliminate her. Liu confronts him and gets him off his sister. It is uncertain why he did it, perhaps out of fear. Liu then says that their mission is to restart the torque engines along the equator. He adds that Jupiter has thinned out the atmosphere of the Earth. Most aircraft cannot fly now. After that, the commander calls and says that 350,000 people are trapped in a certain area and need to be rescued. Following that, Liu inserts his grandfather's license into the huge vehicle's access area, and then they start driving it. Afterward, the crew that carries the lighter core is shown. The underground city they were heading for is revealed to be destroyed. One of them then collapses. They try to help, but nothing works. The boss says that they have to keep moving. To this, the female, Kyan, responds by shooting the lighter core. The boss yells at her and gets so angry that he shoots the snow. Liu then arrives at them in the vehicle. Tim comes to him and argues whether they should help them, and Liu states that Tim can switch sides whenever he wants to. The boss of that crew says that their mission failed, and that they may all return home now. This causes Liu to honk the horn of the vehicle. Then he states through radio that they have a lighter core on board, and that they could use assistance to rescue Sulawesi. The next scene has the outside crew sitting inside the vehicle with Liu and his people. One of them states that their mission now is to restart the Sulawesi torque engine. The survival of Earth depends on them. And with that, they depart. In space, Makarov and Peking try to return to their space station. As it rotates in their direction, they fail to catch onto it and it sends them flying again. When it comes around again, they jump for the entrance, but the computer registers them as a threat and blasts them. Makarov gets hit and his face cover cracks. As it cracks further, and he goes flying away, he says his final words to Peking. He says how the ice on Earth will melt one day and they will go fishing. After that, Peking finally grabs onto the station and tries to get in, but the computer tells him that it is an unauthorized entry. He then ends up entering anyway, and by doing so, the computer says that he violated the Wandering Earth Act. By doing so, he is removed from all of his authority. As it continues to speak, he throws a tank at the computer and damages it. Afterward, he pushes some buttons on the control panel and the computer states that all actions are legal. As Liu rides, we hear that 90% of Earth's engines have been restored. All but the Sulawesi engines. Then we see the engines restart, the blue long flames emitting from the Earth. Peking hears the computer say that in 3 hours Earth will breach Jupiter's Roche limit and begin the disintegration process. Then we see how the rest on Earth hear that Jupiter's gravitational pull has surpassed the power of all engines combined. The Helios project is then mentioned. There are 300,000 human embryos stored on the space station, along with 100 million seeds of basic crops, among several other essentials for the new planet. We see that the people of Earth are in chaos. The broadcast tells them a final goodbye. The man with the large machine gun fires away at Jupiter. Peking asks the computer then to speak to his son one last time, but it tells him that the connection failed. We then see Liu speaking to the air as he says how he cannot remember his father's face. He states that Jupiter is here, and that means his dad should be as well. Shortly after, Liu remembers how when he was little, his father told him about Jupiter's chemical makeup. An idea instantly comes to him after that. He asks a crew member about mixing Jupiter's atmosphere with Earth's. He then asks if it is combustible. A crew member says that Jupiter has drawn at least 30 billion liters of Earth's oxygen. A mixture with such large numbers should generate a force that could be strong enough to push Earth away. Liu says that a hydrogen-oxygen mixture can be ignited with just one match. The crew member tells him that the distance between Jupiter and Earth is over 70,000 kilometers. Nothing that anyone has can reach such a large distance. But then Liu asks if they can reach it with a torque engine. The member tells him that he can modify it so it can propel its flame much higher. The next scene has that member explain to the rest of the crew the plan for the mission they will embark on. He states several stages of the plan. Liu is the designated member that will drive the lighter core to the reaction chamber. When he finishes with the briefing, he asks if anyone has questions. When all of them raise their hands, he does not ask a single one what their questions are. We then see them enter the engine station. After being there for a few moments, they shut off the engine power. We see the long blue flame from outside go out. Then we see Liu ride to the Sulawesi chamber. Duo tries radioing anyone from outside for help, but we see that everyone is apathetic to doing anything now. Afterward, Liu arrives at the engine core. Once there, a huge robotic arm takes the lighter core from their vehicle and places it inside the torque engine. Later on, Liu walks on top of the platform by himself. In doing so, Tim asks him if he is crazy. He then jumps from the platform onto the engine. Meanwhile, rocks fall down in Duo's area. Tyan gets severely wounded by having a metal rod go into her. They try to help her, but there is not much they could do. Then Duo radios her father. She tells him they are still alive and at the Sulawesi engine. She tells him about their plan, and when she does, the computer at her father's station tells them that this plan was already considered by Israeli scientists, and adds that the probability of its success is 0. After that, Peking contacts the United Earth government. He asks to send reinforcements to the Sulawesi chamber. A French representative tells him that this order cannot be carried out because of the current situation. No one will want to take part in such a mission when their chance of success is unrealistic, and their final hours of being alive would be wasted. But Peking then gives an emotional speech as to why it should still be tried. The representative then tells him that as a private individual, he will do the best he can. Duo gives a speech over the radio to many out there that she has hope for the future. We see that many are moved by this and agree. We even see one say somewhere that they will not make it home in 7 days anyway, so they might as well help with the mission. From overhead, we see many vehicles turn around and start driving back. Meanwhile, Liu finishes working in his area, and Tim tries pulling him out by the rope he is attached to. But he is not strong enough for it, so he falls down from the platform, and the force generated by the fall pulls Liu out. But they now both hang from the platform. Then we see that the member Lau finishes the operation in his area. He plugs in the cord, and it goes from 99 to 100% complete. After finishing it, though, it is possible that he has died. We then finally see the many helping hands that arrived in Duo's area. They have accumulated a lot of manpower to help push the machine where it needs to go. And so they do it. A member then tells Liu that they are ready for ignition and that he gets out of the reactor. We see Liu driving out of there in his vehicle along with Tim. He is hitting closing doors in the process. When they finally exit the torque engine, the member slams the ignition button. What happens then is a massive eruption from the torque engine. An extremely long red flame shoots out from the powerful structure, and they see that it far surpasses the other flames. But it then gets reported that the flame reached its maximum height and is still 5,000 kilometers short of where it needs to be. Liu then asks what else could be done to finish it. Peking hears this problem. He then calls the UEG and asks if he could plunge the spaceship into the plasma beam. But the computer tells him that it will not sacrifice the Helios project. This prompts Peking to throw a combustible bottle at the computer. The interior of the space station then burns, and Peking acquires manual control of the ship. He then sits in the cockpit and places a picture of his family in front of him. When he gets ready to pilot, the UEG contacts him and tells him that they accept his request. Then he tells them to tell the people on the surface to seek refuge. He then flies towards the plasma flame. Once he does, he broadcasts his plan to Earth. Liu asks him what he is doing and tells him not to. But Peking tells him that he's going on a mission again. He says that it's the most important mission in his life. But Liu says that he told him that when he sees Jupiter, his dad would return. However, his father tells him that he will see him this time. And he flies into the red flame, and the space station explodes. They all get a report that Jupiter has been ignited, and that the shock wave will reach Earth in 7 minutes. All people then evacuate to the underground city, and we see Jupiter sending its eruption towards Earth. Liu and his crew then rescue Duo. They then get inside the vehicle and ride away. But Earth soon after gets hit by the shock wave, and we see how everything in its path gets crushed down. The vehicle gets destroyed, and its members fly out. Some of them hang on to the broken bridge, but Duo falls below it. Seeing this take place, Liu falls down for her. When he reaches her, he takes her hand and then holds her completely so that they fall down together. Then we see them on the ground, lying protectively in Liu's summoned bubble. But then a huge rock comes falling down, and as it crashes onto the ground, a sharp fragment from it cuts open the bubble. Liu and his sister get ejected from the bubble. We then see that Liu is lying there with a broken face cover. His suit gives him a low temperature warning. Meanwhile, thousands of Earth's torque engines turn on and move the Earth away from Jupiter. We see then from Liu's point of view how the closest engine turns on and emits its blue plasma. He says that Earth survived, and then his eyes close and we see darkness. After that, 3 years have gone by. A narrator speaks about the 5 stages of the Wandering Earth project. While this takes place, we see a man walking in one of the many underground cities. It is Liu in an astronaut suit. He keeps walking, and we observe a few of the activities that take place in underground cities. Later, he meets his friend that survived the mission. He asks Liu if his sister will come too. Then they get into one of the big vehicles, where Duduo already sits. Liu gets ready to drive, and when he starts, we see that he has not improved his driving skill, as he crashes into a neighboring vehicle before he gets on the road. As they drive from an overhead view, the narrator says that it will be a journey that will last 100 generations, and no one knows what the new star will offer them. And the final scene shows thousands of torque engines propelling the Earth through space.